for coming to my webinar. My name is Matthew, and the webinar is going to be mainly about college applications and about the UK versus the US. And this meeting is hosted by LHOF, which is the organization that sponsored this. And so LHOF is basically an organization we go around and in order to help the rural children in China, especially the underprivileged. And so, yeah, we have an international and local outreach program, and unfortunately, due to COVID-19, our plans for last summer were canceled as well as this summer. So this is part of the series called the Friday Talks, and it's part of our local outreach and encourage our youth to exercise our social responsibility. And so we can begin the webinar. And so our guest speakers are there's Maggie, Yuan, and just introduce yourself.
Yep. Hi guys, I'm Maggie. So I recently graduated this year from Trinity Prep. So I'm class of 2021, and next year I'll be studying classics and international relations at the University of Pennsylvania up in Philadelphia.
And then our second.
Hello, my name is Enzo Cunanan. I am one of Maggie's best friends, and we graduated obviously together in the same class. And I am heading over to England, the University of Oxford, and I will be studying history there.
Okay, so on to the topics. Just share about your extracurriculars and the experiences you've had in like high school and others.
Yeah, and do you want to go first? Or?
Yeah, so Maggie and I have both done fencing since I want to say 10th grade. So that was nice. I feel like that was nice because, well, it taught me the value, even if I don't do it anymore, it instilled in me this sort of value of trying to keep a cool head in tough situations, because I'm not a very physical person, so it is sort of stressful for me in that way. But also I think it's interesting for colleges because not a lot of people, I would wager, do fencing. And so there's like, I mean, it's okay, you don't even need to be like brilliant at it. Neither Maggie or I are going to the Olympics for fencing, but what I think it shows to colleges is that, especially if you've been doing it for a sustained period of time, they're like, okay, that's interesting. You're a well-rounded individual, which is more of an American thing than an English thing, as I found out. But yeah, so similarly, we were both in the National Honor Society, although I can't for the life of me, to be honest, quite figure out what I did there. I was part of the National Spanish Honor Society, and I helped tutor kids with regards to Spanish. So that was nice because I got to it's sort of a mini teaching experience that way. And so it fit in with what I want to do, which is eventually become a history professor. And until COVID happened, I was also very involved with the History Bowl and Bee and Bowl program at our school, where we would sort of, and also Quiz Bowl. Maggie and I both did Quiz Bowl, both for the school and for the Orange County in the statewide competition. But unfortunately, when COVID hit, Quiz Bowl at the school continued. Quiz Bowl at the state level did not continue. History Bowl did not continue. My coach for History Bowl left. So but what that does is so you can, and I also did theater, and Maggie did strings, and so as part of FSY, as I'm sure you know. So what that does is it creates this, you can see my activities are all related, most of them, to what I want to do, because I was I think as a 10th grade, when I was thinking, okay, what do I want to do in college? I'm like, okay, I'll do history. And History Bowl, Quiz Bowl, all these sorts of things, they sort of support okay, I'm really serious about this, and that helps lend weight with colleges, I guess.
Yeah, cool. And then Enzo basically gave a brief rundown of some things I did. I was also very involved in my school's Latin program, which, like, as Enzo was just talking about, how he did a lot of history related things and is majoring in history. Similar for me, I really liked Latin. I did a lot of Latin extracurriculars at school. And so I'll be majoring in classics next year. And then, yeah, that's basically it. I did music for like most of my life. And those are my big main things.
All right, so we can continue on to the comparison.
Yeah. Now Enzo and I are kind of going to talk briefly about the US versus the UK systems, because college-wise and high school-wise, they're both like extremely different. And, applying to if you're interested, for example, in going to like Oxford or Cambridge next year, you'll have to go through a completely separate system and it'll be on a completely different timeline. So we wanted to give you an idea of what that would be like. So I'll first talk about the US and then Enzo will talk about the UK. But I'm sure a lot of you, as you're preparing for college, you know a lot about what the US system is going to require in terms of, what they want you to submit. So for example, of course, you have your SAT/your ACT score. You only need one for colleges. You don't need to take both. Yeah. And then next you have 2 to 3 teacher recommendations. And that really just depends on which college you're applying to. They might ask for 2 required ones, and then they might ask for a third, like an optional one. And typically they say like it can come from any teacher. They just want it to be from a core subject, so like, history, science, math, writing. And then next we have a counselor recommendation. So at your school, this is either going to be like your college counselor or it'll be like your actual guidance counselor. And they write one for every single person who applies to college. So, build a good relationship with your counselor for sure. And then next we have the official high school transcript, which is exactly what it sounds like. It has your GPA on there. It has all the courses you've taken throughout high school. And yeah, and then next we have the school report. So this is something that you guys might not have heard of, but essentially what this is, you don't have to do anything about it. Your school will send this to each college. It basically tells them what courses are offered at your school and what type of grading system they're on. And it tells you a lot of information about the school, like how big it is and everything like that. So, colleges can put that into perspective when looking at your application. And then finally, you submit your US applications through either the Common App or the Coalition app.
Yeah. So the UK, so the US and the UK, just broadly speaking, the US is the schools are very much focused on, broad curricular, broad like well-roundedness, I guess, like, and it's more personal, like, especially with the essay, because on the Common App you will have an essay, and of course, it's often very personal, and you'll have to write supplementals for your schools too. And so, for instance, I remember when I was thinking of applying to Chicago, where I didn't apply anyway, they had weird, wacky questions, like, oh, who would you invite to dinner from history and why, and then you would have to answer that in a insightful and personal and quirky and funny way. But the UK is very straightforward because it's assumed since you leave, since I think a greater amount of people there leave school at 16 after taking GCSEs, which are the high school, it's sort of like a diploma for them. And then you can do 2 more years for A levels, which is like advanced studies. And so what they do there is they expect you by the time you apply to college to already know what you're going to be doing, and you can't like switch majors, which is, which puts pressure on you to think wisely. So they want proof that you have done stuff equivalent to what would be considered an A level there, which in the US is like APs. So for me, what Oxford wanted was they wanted 3 APs with a 5 score. And so what I gave them was mine from sophomore and junior year. So that related to history. So AP World, APUSH, and then AP Lang. And then you also need a teacher reference because you apply through something known as the UCAS, which is a sort of standardized form. So not only if you want to do Oxford or Cambridge, but like for all the UK universities, and you have like 5 choices there, apparently 5 places you can apply to, maybe more, but I only did one, so like I didn't see. So I'm taking a look at the application right now for what I did, and the UCAS is, yeah, you fill out like the qualifications, and you do put your SAT score in there or ACT score in there. So for mine, I was like, okay, 780 in English, 770 in math, and there is a teacher reference, and you have to put their email address down, and then they'll send something to them that they have to fill out. I don't know what they filled out because confidentiality, obviously. And you also have to write a personal statement, which is sort of like an essay for the UCAS. But here it's more like, why should we let you in, like, for this subject, and why do you think you're capable of studying this subject at a university level? So I had to say stuff like, oh, I'm interested in history because so and so and so, and my APs, like AP macroeconomics, has given me a background in analyzing, et cetera, and I listen to history stuff all the time, and I do History Bowl, I do History B, I do Quiz Bowl. I wrote a 15-page biography of Catherine of Aragon. I wrote an 8-page research paper this year, just all sorts of things. It's sort of like an essay for school, in that you need to marshal evidence to support your claim of, let me into this school, please. And for history at Oxford, we'll talk about the timeline on the next slide, I think. But you do have to do this admissions test for this subject known as the history admissions test. And what that does is, it's not testing your knowledge of history, it's testing how you analyze. So it's like it's skills based. So they give you a passage on a subject you have no idea about, and they're like, okay, what can we conclude about so and so from this passage? And you have to it's like an essay for school, except it's timed, obviously. And then you also have to submit like a piece of your own writing in the classroom so they can take a look at and see if you're good enough. So, but this is for Oxford, so yeah.
Awesome. Just to clarify on one thing Enzo said, how Enzo was talking about for history, he had to take a test. I believe, and Enzo can correct me if I'm wrong, that for every single subject, like if you're applying to physics, for instance, you would still have to take a physics admissions test, and then we'll go over that later in the next
That sounds right, because I remember when I was doing the history admissions test, there was an Indian kid behind me who was doing electrical engineering, and I'm like, okay, there's probably one for everything then. So
yeah. Awesome. We can move on to the next slide.
Hey, before you go to the next slide, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
For Enzo, now on the list of the UK university that you have, did you leave out the transcript by accident, or they don't need even transcript from high school?
I'm taking a look at this, and I don't think they need the transcripts, simply because it's like they're more focused at that level on the exams. And so if you get a good grade on the exam, like, that's what they're looking for. And similarly, I think, let me think about this, because I was about to say something else, but it slipped my mind. Yeah, but yeah, that's the answer to your question.
When you say exam, you meant the SAT score.
Yes, you submit the SAT- or ACT score. And additionally, I feel this is worth noting in case, because you can't apply to when you're doing undergrad, so like this level, you can't apply to both Oxford and Cambridge for some reason. It's a weird thing they've done so that you have to choose between them, and you have to make that decision. I don't know. I think I did Oxford because it was cheaper, honestly, because I couldn't decide, but maybe you'll find one of the two which you really like. So, just be warned.
Okay. And what? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. One more question for both of you, Maggie and Enzo. Would you quickly kind of order this list here to tell us which one is more important than the other, if there's such an order?
For the US, I would say the most important thing is very obviously going to be your high school transcript. SAT, ACT scores don't matter as much if you don't have, really good grades. And then Common App, Coalition App, that includes the essay. So I would say the two most important things on the US side are going to be your high school transcript and then the essays on the Common App.
I want to say that similarly for the US, the most important things are at the top. You have the exams you sat. So the scores of your exams that you're submitting. So, if you get 5s in your subjects, that shows that you can, handle that level. And so, you know, you might succeed. You're going to succeed more than if you have like, you should be striving for 5s on at least the exams, which are close to the subject you want to do if you want to apply to the UK. And similarly, just right below that in importance is the personal statement, because that outlines your rationale for why you want to study there and why they should accept you. And it is very much sort of a persuasive essay thing, in addition to being sort of like, I mean, think of this as an assignment. You need to draft and redraft. It's like any piece of writing for college. So like, similarly with, and Maggie can tell you this, how much she has had to draft and redraft because of feedback from her college counselor, her college essays. So it's like that.
Okay, thank you so much, both of you.
You're welcome.
Of course.
I have a question for Enzo. On the UK system, you said 3 APs. If you have more than 3, can you submit more than, or you can be selective on which AP you send them to?
You can definitely be selective. I did 3 APs. 3 APs is the minimum, actually. So like I did 3 APs because at the time that I was submitting these, I had only 1 AP in sophomore year, only 3 APs in junior year, and then I was doing 5 APs in senior year, but I didn't have those scores yet, and I wouldn't have them by the time I submitted the application. So it was more out of necessity that I did the minimum. And as for the 4th AP, it was Spanish, and that didn't feel as important to me, so I just left that off because I was like, I would have struggled to connect that. So yeah, you can definitely, if you do more, and I know people in junior year, for instance, certainly did more than I did, like they would be taking like 5 APs. If that connects to your subject somehow, you know, you can go for it, you know, you can submit those scores.
And if you have a 4, happen to be have lots of AP, but happen to have a 4 on 1 AP, you can choose not to send that one, correct?
Yes, you can.
And for the personal statement, it gave me the feeling that the topic remains to be the same year over year. It's not like the US essay, they have pumps, sometimes they change. So yeah, you actually can prepare right now, just write why they...
Yeah. So what they've done is kind of strangely, although I guess this makes it better, they don't have a specific topic. It's sort of your way of the website. The UCAS website describes it as a chance for you to explain why you'd like to study your particular subject and what skills you have that prepare you for and show your passion in that field. And so the UCAS website, if you just search UCAS personal statement, there's a whole lot of like worksheets and like PDFs available, including like samples of what to do, what not to do when writing it. So, you know, there's a lot of help, and I found those really invaluable. But you know, prepare ahead of time. Like I started writing this the summer of senior year, so.
But I wouldn't start any earlier than that because
yeah, because I started writing essays in junior year summer, and then I didn't use any of those. Yeah, so exactly. Like
it'll change a lot, so don't waste your time writing too early.
Okay, I do have another question. So you said using UCAS, you can submit up to 5 schools in UK, but you are using one personal statement, so you are not like personalized, catered to 5 different, you know. Okay. But what if when let's say Oxford has a history and economics, but I don't know the other school, they don't have that history and economics. Then you're writing, well, I'm good at history and economics, and that looks like obviously only applies to Oxford, and that's obvious to other school. What they think about that? Like,
I'll just try to answer this from what I know, because I didn't, you know, maybe I could have. The thing with this was I was very much set on Oxford, and I didn't think of applying to other UK schools, which is perhaps not a good thing. But like, if you know, maybe you want to just keep your options open, because I thought I'd get into at least one US school. I did not get into Yale or Vanderbilt, which, you know, think on that. But so yeah, I would just because I mentioned economics in my personal statement, just as, you know, the classes I'm taking, and I focused on like, oh, it ties into economic history. So like, you know, there you go. And so maybe just like, you may want to focus, just I'm guessing based on, you may want to focus on the things that all of those schools have in common, the history part, and you can mention the economics part, but don't make it like as big, I would guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
And last question for you. So,
Mhm.
Sorry for so many questions.
No, it's okay.
I think Oxford has so many colleges. Is it matter which college you apply for? Can you leave it blank, or?
You can leave it blank. That's what I did, because honestly, like they say they all have their own like distinct culture or whatever, but honestly, you know, you could still like, you can very much apparently just, you can mingle with people from other colleges. So like,
And so can you explain that real fast? I'm not sure everybody knows what that means.
Yeah, the colleges, okay, Oxford is very unique because it doesn't have its own campus. It's set in Oxford, the city, and that is the campus. It's spread out over the city. And so there's like these little like buildings, like 30 of them, collection of buildings all across the city, and they're called colleges. And that is where that's where your dorm is. And that's where you also study with, there's like specific people for each subject at the college residing there, and you have your own individual tutorials with them, which I'll talk about later. And you know, you have your own social events there. They have like their own support system there. It's very, and they have their own libraries too, and facilities. You know, it's very much it's a way of making you feel, I guess, more at home and with a smaller group of people than, you know, than like if you went to UF, for instance, and that's a big school, and you feel kind of swamped. I don't think you'd have that problem at Oxford. So, you know.
Awesome. Let's move on because let's save all the rest of the questions for the end.
Yeah.
Just a reminder, there will be a Q&A session at the end, so you can save your questions until then. So it's just the schedule difference.
Yep. So now we're just going to talk a bit about like the timeline of the whole thing, because the timeline is also pretty different, or at least you should keep them two separate in your head, and you have to keep track of both if you're applying to both US and UK schools. Okay, so for the US part, it's advised that you take your SAT/ACT at least for the first time during your junior year. Like for example, I took the SAT in November, and then I took the ACT in December. And then of course, like, you know, if you want to keep retaking it to get a better score, you can go all the way up until your senior, like summer, senior, fall. But the sooner you get it out of the way, the better, because then you can focus on everything else. So then after that, during your senior year is when all the fun begins. So during the summer is when we would advise you begin to like write essays, especially your Common App personal essay. That's going to be the most important essay that you need to write. So I would definitely draft it and have like a really nice draft right before you even start senior year. And then throughout like September through November is when you should start writing the supplementals for all your schools and like have the Common App filled out. I forgot when the Common App opens. It might be like the summer before, right?
Let me take a look.
Yeah, Enzo will take a look. But yeah, as soon as Common App opens up, I would, you know, like fill out the Common App stuff. Like it just asks for a lot of your information, you know, like your
like beginning of August, it says.
Beginning of August. So as soon as Common App opens up, I would definitely fill out everything you can. And also during the summer, finalize a college list. It's advised that you apply to 5 to like 10 schools, I would say. Some people, you can do less or you can do more. And we can talk about that later if you have any more questions about it. And then in November, that's going to be the early application deadline. So in the US system, you're allowed to apply to one school that's private early. So this means that you basically bind yourself to the school, and if you get in, then you have to go there. And then December, for that, the decisions for that one early school will come out. So like, you know, the benefit of applying early is getting a decision early, and then you can be done with the process. That's what I did with UPenn. And then for January is when all your other applications are done. So, you know, if you don't get into your early school, or if you get deferred, then you have to submit all your other applications sometime in January. Every school has a different date, so make sure to keep track of when which school is due. And then March through April is when decisions come out for all these schools. And then they typically give you till May 1st to make a final decision on what college you want to go to.
Yeah, so this is my experience with Oxford. So junior year, you do the same thing. You take the SAT-ACT. I start writing essays. That's not good. Maybe just start thinking, because my mom thought it was a good idea, because although maybe that was just to make me feel better, after I ended up using none of those essays, because I used one because I applied to Yale, but otherwise, my mom was like, oh, it's okay, you learned how to write essays. And I'm thinking, I don't think, because I'm on the autism spectrum, so I do need a lot more planning, I think, than most of y'all. So I don't think y'all would benefit from doing it this early, but definitely research the universities you like in England and their programs, compare them, because Oxford and Cambridge are unique for that tutorial system and sort of writing essays every week and one-on-one feedback with the professors, and the other universities don't have that. And then decide what subject you want to study, obviously, because it's different, obviously, from the US, where it's general education and that sort of stuff. You don't have that, which is sort of a shame for me, because I am interested in a lot more than just history. But I had to search deep within myself and be loved the most. And I'm like, okay, history. Senior year, summer, you start writing, and hopefully, and I would advise finish by summer, or at the latest September, your personal statement and the UCAS as a whole, because the UCAS is due on October 15. And early November, you take your subject test. And then November 20 is, at least for history, is the written work submission deadline. I know you'll probably need written work for other subjects in humanities and social sciences. So I think English, and probably economics, and maybe some other stuff. I don't know about the sciences. December, if you're shortlisted, you will get an interview. So if you get an interview, that's a good sign, because it's not a good sign as to the final decision. It doesn't mean anything. It means that you've progressed. You've survived sort of the weeding out of some of the other people. Some people don't even get interviews. So congrats on getting an interview at this point. And the interview isn't like you trying to impress them. It's more like you working through stuff with them, working through problems and trying to show them how your brain works. So what my interview was like was 3 people from my college that I ended up being sorted into university college. And we were talking about stuff like, oh, what is the usefulness of generations as a historical grouping? Or how does that, and what book, and tell us more about the book you said you read on your personal statement. And so it's more of a conversation back and forth. And then in January is the decision. So first few weeks of January, I think I got mine on I think it was January 10ish. And so and then you'll be able to and then there's a whole host of things which UCAS will walk you through, because the website that you apply through also has a number of things. So you're going to need to sign a contract, you're going to need to firmly accept, yes, you're going to need to fulfill a host of prerequisites, which I'm still in the process of doing because I'm still applying for my student visa. So but yeah, January is when the decisions come out, and from there you'll be able to make your own decision if you want to go there or not. So
awesome. I'm gonna cut in real quick for 1 second, talk about interviews in the US, because I realize that it's very different in the US than from the UK. So in the US, interviews don't depend on like Enzo was saying for the UK, they cut out a significant amount of applicants and only a certain amount get the interview. So like Enzo was saying, it means it's a really good thing if you get an interview in the UK. But in the US, don't have too much writing on the interview, because it really is typically, just an alumni giving the interview, and it's based on availability. So in the US, don't worry if you don't get for example, an interview from Yale, because that just means that there's not an alumni in the area that can interview you. And interviews in the US only really add to your application. They don't typically take away from it. So if you bomb the interview, it'll just be a plus or a minus on your application, and the admissions count council will take that into consideration, but it's not a big consideration. So basically, don't be too worried about a US interview for a college. Cool. So now we're going to talk about the differences in like the college system itself in the UK versus the US. So I didn't write a ton for this one, but first off, in the US, as you guys probably know, it's for most colleges and universities, it's going to be 4 years and then you graduate and get your diploma. And then of course, in the United States, you can also change your major as many times as you want and like into as many subjects as you want, depending on what school you go to. And for example, for Penn, you declare your major at the end of your second year, but you can still change your major even afterwards. You just have to get a certain amount of credits and then you can graduate that with that major. So the US is not as focused, you know, on one, like you studying one specific subject. So they'll let you have a lot of elective classes. A lot of colleges will also have general education requirements. So just because you major in math doesn't mean that you won't take a writing course in college, because they want you to be a very well-rounded person in order for you to go out into the workforce, right? And like typically it's called what? Liberal arts education.
Mhm.
So because you're well-rounded, you're not just learning about your major, you're learning about the skills it takes so that if you ever switch into a different job, you can still use these like analytical skills and stuff like that. Oh, and most of US schools are going to be taught in like either seminar style or lecture style. So lectures, of course, you know, one professor teaching a room of like 100 kids and he just like, you know, projects a PowerPoint and he talks about that. And then seminars are going to be smaller groups, often with like a TA, a teaching assistant, guiding you through that.
Yeah, so for the UK, most courses, except for like the sciences, but like most courses are 3 years. I say course, and this is just a habit of mine because the UK, the vocab is different there. They don't say major there, they say course. They don't say course there for like the little classes you have. They say paper, which is weird because it's like an exam paper, I guess. The vocab is weird. You're gonna have to get used to that. You can't, it's very rare that you ever change your major. And there isn't a general education, which I feel grateful for because I'm not good at math. And so I didn't want to ever do that again. And there's a very intensive focus on your subject. And for Oxford and Cambridge in particular, there's an emphasis on these sort of individual or at least small group 2 to 3 students and tutorials where each week for Oxford, I'm going to be writing like 1 or 2 essays, which are like, I don't know, 10, 12 pages long. And I'm going to be discussing this stuff and I'm going to have to be trawling through the literature and like sort of, and they'll give you broad sort of questions to structure these essays around, but in many respects, you have to like do it yourself, design what the essay is going to be like yourself. And at the end, you talk about it with your professor. And I do mean talk, you work through the implications. And thankfully, the UK is, Oxford is has a lot less grades than in the US. So all of these essays that you do as part of these tutorials will be scored, but like, and graded and given feedback, but it's not like actual grades, if that makes sense. It depends on the grades you get on the exams at the end of the year. So at the end of the first year, you have, for history, you have like 4 subjects, and then you take an exam on those 4 subjects, and the score you get there, I think the passing is like above a 40. So like if you get above a 40, you can move on to the second and third year. And second year and third year, you're doing the same subjects. And then third year is like the end of the history degree. And so what you get there determines like whether you can say, oh, I graduated with honors, etc. But I think that's actually that's sort of nice because you're by the time you do the final exams at the end of the year, you will have written so much and been given so much feedback that and I know I'm going to be, my first essay will probably be horrible compared to what it will be at the end of the year, but like it helps you grow, and I like that. So, you know, good job.
So we'll continue. So basically just like design your college, what made you choose UPenn, what made you ED, and what made you look at UK and Cambridge and Oxford and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. Deciding your college, like I said before, it's definitely something that you should narrow down a college list, during the summer before your senior year. And like, obviously prestige is always going to play a part in whatever you decide, but there are a lot of things to think about. Number one, and probably most importantly, does it have the major you want? US schools, a lot of them have very different majors. And if you want a more specific major, you're going to have to look at bigger schools in order to get that major. And then next, you should, definitely look at location. For example, if you want to stay somewhere hot like Florida, then don't look at schools in the north. Because, even if, Yale's really good, if you're not going to enjoy your 4 years there, then don't apply there, right? And then next, I would take a look at, what is like the school environment like? What is like housing like? How many clubs are there at your school? So just do a lot of basic research about whether or not you would really be happy there as a student. First, in your head, I would say, like make a list of things that you 100% want in a school. Like if you want, no like teaching assistants as your professors, if you want only professors, then you should look at schools that will have, 100% of your classes taught by professors. And if you want, a school that's going to have snow, then look at places with snow, and a lot of stuff like that. So for me, deciding on UPenn was definitely because I wanted to go up north and I wanted to live in a place with 4 seasons. And then I really like the environment of Penn. They have dorms your first 2 years. And it seems, there was a ton of clubs and activities, and it was really good.
Like the US universities because they were founded like way later than Oxford and Cambridge, so they take more inspiration from that. So I don't think they have general education there, but they do have sort of bigger classes. They don't have these individual tutorials, and if you want to go to the UK but you don't need put them by the wayside for now. Australia, not a thing anymore. I'm set on UK now. And so that is sort of the way it's sort of weird. I sort of planned for this to happen, but like, I didn't think I would happen. So like, lesson goes, like, trust yourself, believe in yourself. And if you don't get accepted into Oxford or Cambridge, keep in mind, I didn't get accepted into Yale and I got waitlisted at Vanderbilt. So like, college is just weird with applications sometimes, and you'll probably find a school that fits you better because like, I don't know. Okay. Like I think like one of the big reasons I applied to Vanderbilt, and I'm so ashamed to admit this, was because someone I liked was going there. And so like, please don't make the same decision I did. Yeah.
That's pretty good advice right there. Yeah, exactly. Do your research, don't base it off of a person.
Please.
Thanks for sharing. And I also have another question on the UK offer. Is it, I sometimes, I did a quick Google search. Some people said it's conditional offer. Is it conditional or not conditional?
It is conditional at first, and then you need to meet the requirements. So like, you need to send the sort of, because you say on the application, the UCAS application, oh, I got a 5 in this, I got a 5 in that. But what they want you to do after they accept you, or at least after they give you the offer, is they want you to send from the college board like the actual like documentation which shows, yes, he did get a 5 on this, yes, he did get a 5 on this, yes, this is his SAT score. And they also want you to, there's a whole, like the UCAS website again walks you through a whole host of things they want you to do. And once you satisfy everything and you sign the contract, it'll say, instead of saying conditional offer on the application website, it'll say, congratulations, your place at the University of Oxford to study blah 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 is confirmed. And then it says below that unconditional offer firmly accepted, because it's unconditional and now because you've fulfilled all of the requirements. And as for how long that takes, it took me like 2 months. May take more or less than that, but yeah, it by the end of the school year you should be able to have an unconditional offer. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
There seems to be one question in the chat. Somebody asked, stuff about finding affordable colleges. I think, and Enzo can correct me on this once more, that in general, the UK is going to be a lot more affordable than US schools, correct?
At least for Oxford, you'd be surprised. So Maggie is of course going to UPenn, which is notorious for how expensive it is, tuition only with tuition. And so tuition and living fees wise, I think tuition plus living fees for Oxford for a year is like 60,000, which like is alone is like, I think that's less than the tuition alone for UPenn. So like,
it's close, but yeah, either way, 60,000 is still pretty. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, plus the living fees, which I had to factor that in. So like, I think, yeah, I don't know what it is about the colleges over there, but I would assume that Oxford and Cambridge are obviously more expensive than the regular universities. But like, I didn't check with that, but that's just me assuming. And additionally, I know this from experience, they don't give you scholarships if you're foreign, which is so mean of them. And frankly, I mean, we're all Asian here, so like, you know how Asian parents are. They're like, we'd sacrifice anything to get you to the best school, which, very admirable. Keep doing you. So, but like, yeah, I know that also, a lot of us, financial stuff is very important. So, I mean, just check around. Make sure to check at the web pages for the universities and their sections on funding and tuition fees, because my mom wanted to make sure that there truly was no option for me to get a scholarship. Like, she was like, take a look more. And we exhausted all those options, and she was like, okay, fine, I believe you now. But yeah.
So Enzo talked a bit about the UK affordability in the US. The cheapest schools, if you're really thinking about, can I afford to go to this college or not, in-state. Oh, it kicked her out after he started. Enzo's answer was essentially that the UK was around 60,000, you said, and then
yeah, for Oxford at least.
The big thing is that a lot of foreigners can't get scholarships in the UK, so that's something to definitely consider when applying there. For the US, obviously it'll be easier to get scholarships. And if you're really looking at affordability, then in-state is the way to go, like a public in-state college. There's UF is a very good college. And it if you want to go to graduate school, I would say, consider UF pretty strongly, because it's only 6,000 to 10,000 a year. Penn and other schools that, that high level are going to be around $80,000 a year. That's tuition plus room and board and everything. And then in the US, how much money you make or how much money your parents make is going to be the most heavily considered thing when they talk about financial aid. So at the high level, for example, Harvard, if you and your parents make under $150,000 a year, they basically cover 100% of tuition. So these schools are very generous when giving out aid. So you just have to do research, and a lot of colleges on their website will have a little calculator where you can put in how much you make a year, and they'll tell you how much you can expect to pay in tuition. So that's definitely something to use as a tool when you're looking at affordability for colleges.
Okay, can I ask 2 questions?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Tony's corrected me. It's 10% at most. Free if below 75.
I have two questions. The first is about the choosing major in the US. Since Maggie mentioned that you can change your major after the second year in the college. So what is the meaning of decide your major when you apply for the college anyway? But anyway, we know that right now the computer science or the medical school is very popular. So if you apply that before you enter the college, it has to be at a higher standard compared to the other majors generally. So what is the meaning of choosing major when you do the college application? The second question is about how can you find that you are culturally fit for this place, except that you can see that what the weather is like, how large the class is, and what is the city like. But how are you really sure about the campus culture that you can figure out? Is that you go to the college, you go to a visit for like a weekend before you go there, or any other way that you can understand more about the campus? Thank you.
Yeah, your second question I'll answer first because it's, I think, a little easier. Like you said, definitely utilize, campus visits. But then, social media is really big right now, and I would very much use social media as a way to find out whether or not you'd fit the campus. Most colleges, have their own Instagram page, Facebook pages, and then YouTube. So there are going to be a lot of like college YouTubers out there who will post their own videos of like a day in the life of at my school and stuff like that. I would definitely watch a lot of those to get a feel for, what their daily life is like and see if you feel like you vibe with that, right? And
but that is only commercials, right? It's only about the good things.
Well, that's not necessarily true either, because these college YouTubers aren't getting paid by their school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you mean the non-official one? Okay, cool.
Yeah, non-official ones. Just like there are a lot of famous YouTubers out there like that are college related. And then for your first question, what was it again?
About the choosing a major before go to college or change it after 2 years.
So yeah, you kind of figured out, like most colleges know that most of their students are going to change majors. Like they know this. So like when you apply to college, for example, if you are a STEM person, I would still advise that you apply as a STEM major. If you like go and like apply biology and then change to chemistry, like they don't care, whatever. But like it's more important to create a narrative in a US application. So what they're really looking for is like if you apply STEM, that you have a lot of STEM extracurriculars and that your application shows that you're strong in STEM, right? So it's not necessarily about your major, but like just what areas you're interested in, because they know that you're probably going to change. So if you like computer science and most of your extracurriculars are computer science, it would still make sense for you to apply computer science. Even if like, for example, like classics is much less looked at, it wouldn't do you any good to apply as a classics major when you're very obviously not going to major in classics, if you get what I'm saying.
I sort of have,
thank you.
Yeah.
I sort of have a question more personalized for both. So I'm actually also really interested in Latin, and also I wanted to do a history major too. So where did you guys, I guess, like look for opportunities, like I guess outside of school that can strengthen that area specifically? I know that I think like Maggie mentioned like Latin school, but do you know like any, I guess, like other places that I can like try to get more experience in that in?
Yeah, for Latin specifically, so my extracurriculars, does your school have like a JCL, like a junior classical league?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I participate in that already.
Yeah, so I would definitely, the best thing to do is, get leadership positions in those. Do you go to like state forum and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm trying to get more into it like next year, but.
Yeah, definitely, like get leadership positions in those. For me, I think that's what helped me stand out a bit. And then get more involved in the JCL in general, not just at your school, but at the state level. And then there is also a national one, which I regret not doing when I was in high school. I really should have, but I chose not to because I was too afraid. So like, don't let your fear hold you back from doing anything. So like, and the FJCL is pretty involved. And yeah, just like JCL is really the only way you can really go for Latin, and the higher up you go on that. And definitely take all the different tests they offer, like they have the NLE, and they have like the vocab exam, they have a history exam. So I would take all of those as well, because those are more awards that you can just get in Latin.
Yeah. Oh. And for me, this is sort of funny. So I didn't actually have a leadership position in our school's history society thing, Rho Kappa. And what I did was, although there was still like, I forgot how, but I was talking to the like faculty advisor for that club, Miss Grenz, and she managed to, I think there was an essay competition, and I wrote a paper about a very obscure 1800s historian named John Ridpath for that. And it was outside of school. I didn't end up winning, but that's okay. And I think what I did, but that's gaining experience, because what I had to do was since it was a very unknown topic, I had to go through like his actual writing, and I had and like along with a whole bunch of other secondary sources, and I had to compile that into a narrative which explains why he would say this and this and this and certain about certain people and topics. And so I would recommend school as definitely a place to start, but then you need to use the opportunities that school gives you and find ones outside of school, for instance. So for me, History Bowl, I started history competitions in 6th grade with a thing, like it was a tryout for History B in 6th grade, but then that spirals into, you know, you're doing it every year, you know, you do the competitions, which are barely even affiliated with the school at this point. Like you're not competing for the school, you're competing for yourself in B, which is individual. And then, you know, so yeah, you start off at school, you branch out, ask around, ask the faculty advisors at your school with the respective clubs. Yeah.
I sort of have a follow-up. I know that you mentioned that you wrote something about Catherine of Aragon. So like, was that like for like a competition, or like did you try to get it like published anywhere, or was it just for like writing yourself?
That was interesting because I didn't try to get it published anywhere, because I think I was a bit of a fool, and this is something I know better than now. I admirably decided that it would be a good idea to explore, to write about her, because I found her interesting, and I still do, and to try and get all my thoughts down about her, along with giving her life story. And I did that in one summer. It was very like frenzied, you know, me researching and pulling up the primary sources and putting that. The thing is though, and this is something that I think goes for everyone here, please, for the love of God, in college, because you will be writing papers a lot, please keep a list of your sources as you are writing it down. And I'm sure I should, and I know I should have learned this in high school, because like, you know, they're like, do you use noodle tools as you go along? I don't know. I was very caught up in the act of writing about her. So I didn't, so like later I was like, shoot, I should probably cite my sources here. But then like, you have to like piece together where you got the information from, and it was like a living nightmare, and I think I gave up like halfway through. But like the actual text is there, it's just the footnotes, so maybe I'll come back to that one of these days. So yeah, but that was just a spontaneous burst of energy from a younger me, which sort of, I think maybe that could have been STEM, because you know, anyone who's insane enough to do that probably deserves to study at Oxford, is my thing. So yeah, that's just me speaking. So
Yeah, I just thought that was really cool. Thank you.
So Austin asks, will it be better to spread out your subjects in high school? For example, if you are a STEM person, take 1 or 2 subjects outside of STEM, or focus on only one area of subjects, using the same example, only taking STEM subjects. And then he said for a college application. So I'm assuming when you say subjects, you mean like kind of like extracurriculars, because, you know, high school forces you to take a well-rounded amount of classes. So like, yes. So I think that's definitely like a subject of debate, even among, you know, a lot of people. So there's basically 2 different types of applicants you can be, at least like in college lore, right? So we have a well-rounded applicant, and then we have people who have like a spike, which is what you would be talking about when you focus only on one thing. And I don't think there's any necessarily one right way to do it. Colleges want both well-rounded people, but then they also want people who are really good in the subject that they're going to study, right? So I really say it depends on who you are as a person. Like if you really, really like history, like Enzo does, then, you know, your extracurriculars and your courses that you take are going to show that, and colleges will see that. But if you're a person, you know, you like a couple of subjects and you want to branch out and do a bunch of them, then I would do that. So like if you're, for example, interested in both history and then you also like science, you can do both. And then a really nice thing about college applications in the US is once again like constructing that narrative. So find a way to tie together the subjects that you really like into one very cohesive narrative that shows that you can, like combine the two subjects and, form like a unique path. College is also really like that.
Oh my God. So what I did for the personal statement, and this just reminded me about creating a narrative. I spent the first paragraph of my personal statement for Oxford talking about how, oh, I am the product of 3 countries. So I am keenly aware of history's importance because only through history can I understand the things that made me, and I don't know how advisable this is, but sometimes I like to do it. We're all minorities here. So just like, I don't want to say lean on that fact a lot, but like, certainly with me, try and tie that into yourself, because I think that gives a nice little, it personalizes it. And additionally, when people ask now, and this isn't college, it's sort of college related. I've been thinking about what exactly I want to study, like what I want to specialize in when I grow up. Not when I grow up, when I'm older. And whenever people ask me, oh, what area of history are you most interested in? I say, truthfully, 1500s and 1600s history. And then I expand by saying, and this is something I think you should probably set a goal in mind for like what you like, just a general goal of what you want to end up doing eventually. And so I want to study 1500s and 1600s history because that is when a lot of the ideas surrounding colonialism and sort of and science and religion that influence modern day, like Protestantism, for instance, come into being. And what I want to study is how Europeans in that time period viewed non-Europeans and people and objects they considered outside abnormal. So like, for instance, this could be anything from a giraffe to a cyclops to like a deformed baby. And I think it's interesting because I'm not normal. And none of us are normal. What is normality? It gets you thinking, and it's very interesting. So,
I have another question. It's for US school. Maggie, you mentioned that in US system we can change major relatively easily, but is it just within a school? I mean, when I say school, it means School of Arts and Science, business school, engineer school, but you don't really change outside of your school?
That really is going to depend on whatever university you're going to go to. I can give Penn as an example because, Penn is known for Wharton, which is a business school, but I'm going to be in the College of Arts and Sciences. So Penn has 4 different schools, and the transfer process between these schools is pretty hard. You can take classes in any of the schools that you want, but to transfer majors from, for example, like classics to business in Wharton, you're going to have to like write a whole new application. So that is like a little caveat. You need to do your research beforehand. Like, for example, if you want to apply to Penn, if you want to go to Wharton, but like, for example, you say like, you're afraid that you might not get into Wharton, but you might get into CAS, and you apply to CAS and you get in. Don't think that you can go to Wharton the next year. You really have to apply to the school you want beforehand. So like have at least a general, like stay within the field that you're going to be in. Like if you're STEM, stay in the School of Arts and Sciences. If you want to do business, stay in Wharton. Don't apply to one or the other because it is hard to change majors between schools.
Okay. And with regards to recommendation, so let's say if you are engineer major, do you think it's better to ask like a STEM teacher to write a letter, or you want to do one from English teacher, one from math teacher, something totally different?
I would say at least have one from the subject that you're interested in. You don't have to have both of them from it, but it's good to have at least one teacher who can speak to what you're like in that subject.
So another example will be if you are studying music, would you be like asking your band teacher to write a recommendation letter?
Music schools in the US are a completely different thing. Like if you're applying to a conservatory,
I don't know. I'm just using that as an example.
As an example.
Yeah.
It's better to have a core subject teacher as your recommendation letter. And if a school allows you to have a third, then, go for the band teacher and go for the like orchestra teacher. But if not, then I would stick to, like reading or English, math, science, history, language. I would stick to those.
Okay. And regarding to the recommendation letter in UK school system, I kind of forgot about what Enzo said. Do we need that, or do we don't need that, or how many do we need? I kind of confused those two systems. In the UK, do you, I mean, does the UCAS require teacher recommendation letters?
I think they do, but it's only one teacher. So what I did was I got my APUSH teacher to do that. And I don't know exactly what they want the teacher to do because I never got to see it. So like, presumably they just fill out something. They send it to them through email.
Oh, okay. So, if a teacher is retired, does it matter if the teacher is currently in the school or previous taught you but retired?
I think they would prefer someone who's still teaching at the school.
Okay.
That goes for US as well. It's better to ask a junior or senior teacher. I would say like preferable to ask a teacher who you had more recently than to ask a teacher who taught you in years past.
Okay.
All right, actually, I had two kind of ambiguous questions for you guys. So first, in regards to like Trinity specifically, what do you guys think could be improved in the college applications process, like in terms of college counseling and curriculum competitiveness compared to other schools?
You mean at Trinity specifically?
Yeah.
I think Trinity is great in that aspect because I'm going to be honest, like, you know, for the non-Trinity kids here, this doesn't apply to you, but Trinity, you know, the fact that they don't let us take APs our first year, that's an asset to us because we have a lower workload but we still get the same results as other schools in terms of college applications. So really like Trinity is really good about that. And we have great inflation at our school, I'll be honest. But yeah, I think Trinity's great. College counseling is really good. And I wouldn't worry about that. Like the college counselors, like you have to be proactive though. If you go to Trinity, like definitely.
Yeah, it's where Maggie and I went. Trinity's where Maggie and I went. I will say that the college counselors can make a difference, but honestly, like the 3 college counselors they have there right now are good.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that junior year, I didn't have a good college counselor. And so we were on the verge of despair when Miss Grover swept into our lives and replaced him. And we were all happy. And she was a great help through the process. So, you know,
yeah,
Trinity's usually good.
If you have any more questions about that, you can ask us like privately later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you just say overall Trinity and college counseling wise, curriculum wise is overall pretty good, not much room for improvement or results.
Well, obviously there's always room for improvement, but I say, you know, like you have better chances of getting into the college you want at Trinity than other places.
Okay, I got it.
Like,
okay.
I'm not gonna lie, you know.
Okay, all right. So also then I wanted to ask you guys, if you're gonna redo the whole college applications process, like what are some things you wish you would have done differently?
That's a good question. I kind of briefly mentioned this before, but it's like, you know, take advantage of the opportunities that you have and don't be afraid to try something. You know, for me, like I was involved in Latin on like a local and at a state level, but then I was too afraid to go national because I was like, I don't have any friends doing this. What if I don't like it? But now I really regret not doing that. So, you know, like take advantage of everything that you know that's out there. You know, just try to do the best that you can, I would say. And then also don't procrastinate on your college applications. Definitely start during the summer.
Mm-hmm.
I would write a couple supplementals during the summer as well, because you think that you have a lot of time, but these deadlines approach very, very quickly.
Oh, okay. All right. That's all the questions I had. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
In the chat, there's a question from Aiden. So like how many volunteer hours you did through your high school years, and like what kind of you think is the best, and how you thought those played a factor in your acceptance to your schools.
Yeah, I'll go first. For me, I did have a pretty good amount of volunteer hours, well over the 100 that you need for Bright Futures in Florida. Because I was involved in this organization, I got a lot of my hours through LHOF, where we went to China every year and we did fundraising here. And then I was also involved in FSYO, which is Florida Symphony Youth Orchestra, which technically gives you 3 hours every single Sunday for rehearsing music. because we play concerts throughout the year for the community and stuff like that. So they gave us hours for that. So, but honestly, I think like community service hours are a little too hyped up in the United States because, you know, a lot of people get those 100 hours. So it doesn't necessarily stand out anymore to have that. What you really have to show is, you know, dedication to a specific thing. Like, don't just do community service to say that you did community service on your college application. Do it because you really enjoy, you know, the service you're doing for your community, right?
Yeah, and I'll say this: community service really didn't play too much of a part for me because they are interested in, they're like only mention the community service if it sort of lines up with what you're doing. And so I didn't have enough space in my personal statement to include, because I wanted to include the stuff that was most pertinent, so I couldn't tie in Spanish honor society to that. And so I decided, you know, just leave that off the table for now. But yeah, you have to do it in something that you've demonstrated a passion for. So for me, if I wanted to tutor kids in history, if I wanted to do some sort of public service thing, like right now I'm making a podcast with my brother. So like that's something I'm doing, and I probably wouldn't have had time for that. Well, I could have had time for that last year if I tried, which the thing is, I didn't think, I was like, oh, I was a bit afraid to do that because I was like, what if I get behind on my work when I'm recording this, you know? So like, I didn't do it. I had to save it for summer, but yeah. So yeah, that's it. Community service wasn't as big for me. Yeah.
And then Tony asks, how do you make it seem like you're doing community service because you wanted to? Once again, I would definitely just go looking throughout, you know, like do some Google searches, talk to a lot of your teachers and faculty members at your school or other trustworthy adults and ask them about opportunities that you can find a type of community service for almost any type of field you're interested in. You just really have to go looking for it. Of course, tutoring at your school is always an option. And like, you know, for example, like Enzo was saying for his Spanish Honor Society, right? That's if you really like to do language. And like I had the same thing for National Latin Honor Society. You know, we could tutor kids, and that's once again something in the field that I'm interested in, right? You just have to go looking for these opportunities that you don't necessarily have to, you know, like don't like volunteer at a soup kitchen or whatever, unless you really enjoy actually doing that, right? Then you should definitely go do it. But if not, then I would say community service wise, go looking for things that relate to what you like. And then Austin asks what qualifies as community service. You just have to get somebody to sign off on the hours you do, like an adult. So anything can really qualify as community service if the adult agrees that it does. And of course, you can't get paid for it. That's a big thing.
By the way, can I ask how long is your personal statement for the college application? Just like how many pages in general?
Yeah. So the personal statement for UCAS is, it's 4,000 characters. So that's the maximum you can do. And so you're going to want that because they don't want to read more than that. So what you're going to need to do is, it's okay if your first draft is over that, but you're going to need to revise that. And I had to cut out some stuff which I really liked in order to get that to fit underneath. So
yeah. And for the US personal statement on the Common App, I think 650 words, which is like, I think if you double space it, it's like a page and a half, something like that. But unlike the UK one, you cannot go past 650 words. Like they'll cut you off. You can't submit it.
No, I think that's for the UK too. You can't go past 4,000 here.
You basically can't go past 4,000 for UK. You can't go past 650 words for US. So it's not a lot of room.
Yeah, I just feel like if you introduce all your experience, then there's almost like a 500 words already.
Yeah, exactly. So a big thing about the US thing is like, don't try telling your life story. I've gotten that advice a lot when I was applying, you know, don't tell, you know, when I was a kid, I really liked, you know, like, I don't know, playing with sand and now I want to be a marine biologist. Like, don't tell them all that. A lot of people, a good way to start off is use like a personal anecdote or like a quirky little message, and then like go small and then broaden out. That's what a lot of people do in their personal statement. You don't have to, but it's just like a typical one that people do. You know, find a small thing that like shows off some like trait of yours and then tie it into, you know, something like what you want to study or, you know, why you're so passionate about something. did we miss a question? Oh, we asked. Daniel asked earlier, if you decide to commit to a school in the UK, can you still switch it back to a US school later? Enzo, do you know the answer to this?
Hold on, let me take a look. I don't think so, to be honest. Like, maybe you could. I think you're probably gonna have to do it for the, because it depends on. I would assume it depends on how far you go. So I would assume it's easier to wriggle out of it if you're not like unconditionally accepted. But if you've gone to all the trouble of like submitting those documentations and whatnot, like, I get it. Maybe something happens in the family and you can't go overseas. You'd have to consult with them. I'm hoping that doesn't happen with me, because I mean, if it does, I will have experience with it and I'll tell y'all, but you know, I hope it doesn't happen with me. So I would just say that, yeah, it's going to be hard. I don't want to say it's impossible, but it's going to be hard.
Don't commit to a school until you're 100% sure that you want to commit, right?
Yeah, it's just like the US. Yep.
Just wait for your US decisions and then decide which country you want to go to.
I have a kind of related question. So if you have gone to UK school and you decided to come back for graduate school, that's probably, I mean, I think that's pretty much, I don't know. My question is, do you know the UK school grading system? Is it comparable to US?
Not quite. So for instance, I was talking about, hold on, so history department. So yeah, so as I was talking about, there is the exams at the end of the year. You do a thesis at the end of the year for Oxford too. I forgot to mention that. But they do have this sort of grading. The grading system is different. They don't do letters there. And so for instance, for the exam at the end of the year, which will determine, you know, what you graduate in, let's see, hold on. So let me just find it here. Examinations. So it's so you graduate with distinction. It's more percentage based. So if you graduate in distinction, if you get a so if you get above a 70, you pass. If you pass, if that's first class, and then there's 2.1 class, and then there's 2.2 class, and there's 3 class, which are still passing. So you pass if you get above you pass if you get somewhere between a 30 and a 40, and you fail if you get below a 30. So like, yeah, but yeah, if you want to get into like the top end schools for grad school, you should probably aim towards like, I would say above a 75% on these like final exam on these final year exams, year 3 exams. So like, just aim your best, basically, because like,
sounds pretty different.
No, because the fact is, I'm sort of worried because like the fact the pass bar is so low suggests that it's going to be hard. But at the same time, I suspect that, you know, they're going to prepare you. They're going to make you write a lot. So in the end, if you manage to somehow not pass, it's like, well, it clearly shows you didn't pay attention and you weren't invested. So like, you know, I can't bring myself to feel sorry for you. That's my thing. So like, no, yes. Okay. Yeah, no, that's it for me.
So
Thank you.
Are there any more questions? Oh, so Tony asked if you're allowed to take the final exam.
Let me take I don't think so, honestly, but because no, I don't think so. But the good news is for thesis, they do actually for the thesis, they do give you, oh, get out of the way, that's my mother. And she's not here anymore. No.
Hi, baby Maggie.
Ah. Okay, so they do, I don't think they let you retake that, but the good news is they do give you like a cash prize if your thesis is like very good. So like there's multiple awards there are. So like write well, I guess, and you may get a prize of $800 or something, which I think is, I can't imagine that happen. I don't know if that even happens in the US with some schools. I know some schools do it, but this has to be exceptional anyway. So, and you don't have to apply for it either. You just, because the thesis is sort of part of your exams. So like you write it, you turn it in, and if it's really good, you know, they'll be like, give this kid $800, you know, which is nice because, you know, maybe it should be a bit more, but you know, you deserve it. And then you get to put that on your like application for grad school, like I won the blah, blah, blah prize and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, but that's it.
Okay. So Austin asked if sports matters in college applications. If you have any experience in that.
We don't, I mean, obviously any extracurricular you do and you devote a lot of time and effort to matters to colleges. Sports is something that if you do it and you really like it, then you're obviously going to devote like, you know, a lot of days in the week, a lot of hours in every day to that sport. So definitely, you know, make a big deal about it to your college application. Now, like college recruiting process is a completely different story and one that, you know, Enzo and I aren't going to be particularly familiar with because I believe, you know, that depends on what sport you're doing and like your coach, like relationship with the coaches at the school. And you have to start really early for that. So that's completely different. But of course, like sports matters a lot to a college if it matters to you.
Yeah, like it didn't, and as for the UK, not that much. So that's how much matters, not that much, 3 words. So good luck. So good news for you and good news for me and good news for Maggie.
So if that'll be all, or if everyone has any more questions, you can speak up. So if that's it, we'll be ending the webinar then. So
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks for
Thank
attending.
you.